So I think the first question I want to ask is of the proposers for just a second here. What both of you have written, seem to have written a lot of, you've written a lot of local music. Why, what draws you to the voice? Why do you like that? Why do you like the voice? Or do you?
I love the voice. You know, it's funny, I was just talking to the guy. I studied with Joan Tower, or was my first teacher. I studied with other people as well. I was just helping. When I studied with her, she always said, I'll never write a piece for voice. I just don't want to do it. And this is who I worked with for a long time. I never did it myself. And it turns out this month, apparently, Joan Tower's writing her first piece for voice, what I think is her first piece for voice. And there's something so appealing. It's almost addictive. Once I started it, I couldn't stop. I wanted to do more. Because I think, firstly, it's a fun thing to write. It's way more collaborative. Composing to be a lonely business. And it's just nice to work with someone. And it's nice to have something that tells a story that's in some way you communicate something very directly.
Sure, absolutely. Scott?
You know, it's funny that I also had a teacher who had a little bit that same reaction. I studied with Arthur Berger, wonderful American composer who had been a friend of Stravinsky and Copland in the 40s, a neoclassicist, and then kind of converted to 12-tone and 3 tonality later in his life. I studied with him, and he said, the problem with vocal music is dealing with a text and putting yourself into someone else's creative situation. That disturbed him. I can understand that, but that's precisely what I enjoy.
Well, you know what's interesting, speaking of collaboration and all that, and also being scared of being in those kinds of situations. Stefan, you and I have both collaborated with David over here, and we both used him as a librettist. In fact, both of our pieces tonight, David wrote the text for it. So, David, what do you think, what is it like working with us, either of us? And you can but I mean, you know, what is it, has been interesting for you versus writing plays?
It's scary. I mean, I to clarify, I'm totally emerging as far as, I'm out of sight, I'm emerging as far as being a playwright goes. I mean, I've been very lucky over the past 3 years to work with both of you in writing some texts. You know, I'm still working on a play that's you know, hopefully coming together. But yeah, mainly I'm a journalist, theater guy, actor, director, and so it's scary. It's really scary because I mean, I've always wanted to write, and I'm writing more now, and it's great. And you hope that you're going to create a text which has a kind of euphony to it, and can be sung, and makes a sort of poetic sense, tells a story, conveys character, and but most of all, when you guys read it, you're like, aha. You know, and it unlocks something in you, or else something, you know, it sings to you, or you find a way that you can use it or set it. I mean, I sometimes joke to friends that I'm you know, writing a libretto for an opera or for fragments of operas is like writing that verse theater, that verse drama, because the music, you know, is the X factor that makes it really come alive. And a banal piece of pseudo-poetic text, which I'm not trying to write, but it's somewhat banal, but kind of has a nice vowel sounds to it, or some very resonant ideas in it. If set to music, it can really explode. So it's scary because I'm afraid that what I give you might not work for you. Or, you know, but last thing I'll say is, as an editor, working with composers has been great because they can be the best editors of what you give them. Sometimes cutting things out, repeating things, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Scott, maybe turn to you for a second. What have your collaborations been like? Do you feel, do you work kind of like, give me this and I'll set it, or have it been collaborative?
Yeah, it works a lot of different ways. Actually, I want to say that Karen Cote is here tonight. She was married to the late wonderful poet Kenneth Cote, who wrote the Construction of Boston libretto that we'll hear a couple of excerpts from. And Kenneth was wonderful, but his play was already written, The Construction of Boston. So I found it published. And I just got a hold of him and I said, could I set this as an opera? And he agreed. Eventually, I also, it needed some explanation, which I'll explain when we get to the opera, right to that excerpt right before we perform it. But, so he wrote a little extra just for me. And then I had to do some cutting of that, and he complained about the cutting, and we went back and forth. And we had the usual stuff between any collaborators. It was wonderful. Just a verbal mind that I've never encountered the like of Kenneth Coke's writing is. You'll hear the words tonight. They're just amazing. And then my second librettist was Romulus Linney, who unfortunately died just a few weeks ago. We had a great time working on Democracy for Washington Opera, and we're in the process. He had completed the libretto for a new opera that I'm doing for Matt Lincoln Center Theater, and I'll still be kind of developing that in his absence and in his honor. So that's also been just wonderful, working with him. But I don't know, what does just say? It doesn't say anything. There are different kinds of things. Kenneth's is more about language. He's primarily a poet. Romulus is about character. It's about somebody on stage where you say, I can't believe that person just said that. How did that, and it just grabs you, and you want to find out what that person is going to say next, or how somebody's going to react to what they say. It's a different kind of author.
That's amazing, yeah. So I'm only going to ask one more question, and you know what? They'll be here at the reception. And by the way, you can't miss the reception because there are chocolates and chocolate-covered strawberries. Plus, these guys will be there, and the singers. I mean, you just can't go wrong. So, final question for all of you is, what? We're all. Most of what's on the program tonight is in English, and most of us are very familiar with a lot of the great American operas that you're hearing tonight, and so on. But what, even for David, what operas have inspired you that you listen to? Wow, I really love that and want to do something like that, whether it's American or not. We'll start with maybe David. Is there anything?
I can think of two right off the bat. I mean, years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I heard The Difficulty of Crossing a Field, a David Lang opera with text by Mac Wellman, who's a playwright. And it was just it was a very mysterious, abstract, gorgeous work, and it just suddenly, the possibilities of opera as heightened drama. I mean, I knew about it, but it really hit me there. And the second is, I have to say, it's playing right now. It's Nixon in China, and Alice Goodman's libretto for that is absolutely fascinating. And it's just, it's satirical and mysterious and very singable. And I need to study that really closely.
Yeah. How about you, Stefan?
He stole it from, if I'm recollecting correctly, when we went to college together, and I remember that was when I sort of had discovered Nixon in China, all that, and I think I played parts of it
The
for you.
news aria.
And I was, I was familiar with opera, and I still go to opera all the time. I think that may have been the first time that I realized an opera could really be about who we are today. Nixon wasn't exactly of the moment when it was written, but it was really about our world. And I remember I played for everyone who came into my dorm room at the time. So that made a big impression on me, for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. How about you, Scott? Are you do current events?
Modern operas, I'd say, sort of 20th century operas, Virgil Thompson, Gertrude Stein, Four Saints and Three Knights, Sweeney Todd, and maybe Mahagoni. I don't know. Just to take three that I lived with a great deal.
Yeah, interesting. It's fascinating. I mean, I think it's interesting how all these operas are so lyrical. Most of what we're programming tonight. Yeah, everything's in English, most part, except for a couple, I think, one or two. I don't know. It's interesting how much it resonates, I think, with all of us in a way. I think it's almost inescapable that there's something American about all of this, whether it's in English or not, or how it's being said. Anyway, thank you all very much. And we'll,